the 43. Little toss. Here comes a gadget play. Randall L. He can throw. He was a quarterback in college. And he's thrown a touchdown to Hines Ward in the Super Bowl. "43 yards, and sooner or later, they're going to run a gadget."
And you know it's coming in this alumni area that I said is between the 40s. And you know that Randall L. is going to be involved in it. It starts off in a reverse. He comes around and it becomes a reverse pass. And he throws a perfect pass to Hines Ward. Look at him, they start in a bunch and then he comes here. Hines Ward coming all the way across the field. Randall L. getting the ball out in front for him. But you know that they're going to do it. You know that Randall L. is going to be the guy, and they're usually going to do it around midfield.
Randall L. in his career in regular season play 14 of 16 passing, 3 for 3 this year. Now Reed for the point after, and all of a sudden, when it looked like Seattle's going in to take the lead, back come the Steelers.
How you like that, Salt? How you like that, Salt, to start off a Seahawks show while we're prepping for the Detroit Lions? Randall L. throwing a touchdown against us, against Hines Ward's in the Super Bowl in Detroit. With the bus in that game, it was like a Steelers Super Bowl victory, like celebration the entire week. It didn't feel good. Are we going to Detroit? I think I should know that. I think I just spent a whole bunch of time prepping for this game. It is in Detroit. Monday Night Football this week. Next week, it feels like this week, is going to be in Detroit. Welcome to First Kick Seahawks, the show where we prepare you for the first kick of every play by game day, which is Monday. I'm Camden MacLaren. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to support the show, you can always buy me a coffee. There is a link to that in the description below. For some reason my channel is saying there's no data, but we clearly have data, right? There's a ton of fun links to the stuff and topics we are going to talk about today in the description below too, so feel free to click on that as we go through this. You can watch along. Let's get to, first of all, the news of the day. The news that you probably don't expect me to talk about is Matt Gotel. Matt Gotel, he has been on the 90-man roster during preseason and training camp. Matt Gotel is a nose tackle. He was re-signed to the practice squad today. That is concerning because of the Leonard Williams and in particular Byron Murphy injuries. Now, Hankins has played well, and we do know that why is his name Jones can play interior at 3 tech, but we need a nose tackle. Jerron Reed can also play nose tackle, but at least we need a backup for Hankins and Reed. So Matt Gotel being signed to the practice squad is not the best sign. If Williams or Byron Murphy are hurt, we need at least one to be brought up. If both of them are hurt, we definitely need a Matt Gotel to be brought in. As I posted on Twitter, him being signed to the practice squad is not a good tell for us. Other news, Jason Peters, longtime All-Pro player for the Eagles and then some. He played for us last year at right guard in particular, did take some snaps at right tackle, I believe, as a rotational piece. He was not signed, but he was brought in for a visit for the Seahawks, since George Fant, who was signed as a right tackle to be that supplant while we wait for Abe Lucas to come back from an injury, George Fant was put on IR. Jason Peters was brought in. The question is he coming in for right tackle? I would bet, in fact, he is coming in for right guard. I have discussed many times on this channel, as you should know, that you need 8 starters. You need 8 starters on this, on any offensive line, and you need 2 understudies. When one of your starters, George Fant, gets hurt, you need to have somebody brought in. And the person that you bring in is probably not going to be a starter. He's probably going to be an overstudy. Somebody who can come in and show one of your understudies who is coming in, or one of your understudies who is struggling, how to be a professional. Hey, young pup, I'm going to come in, I'm going to show you, look for this. So or I'm going to show you in the week, because if he was to be brought in on the practice squad, he would be there helping them break down tape, helping them during the week in preparation. Hey, I'm going to hit you on this shoulder. This is how a defender is going to strike you in these situations to set you up for this type of thing. He has so much knowledge and experience. You bring him in to make somebody like a Christian Haynes or an Anthony Bradford or a Stone Forsythe just better at their job, right? You don't bring him in for a Laken Tomlinson who had been in the league for a long time. You bring them in for a second-year Anthony Bradford, first-year Christian Haynes, Stone Forsythe, who's now getting a ton of reps. You bring him in for those guys to make them smarter players. You also probably bring him in for somebody like new offensive line coach Scott Huff, who only had experience coaching in college. He was brought along for Ryan Grubb. Just because you follow your offensive coordinator from college doesn't mean that you're ready to coach NFL offensive linemen to go up against these defensive pass rushers. I still have yet to be convinced that Scott Huff is the guy. The only reason he was brought along is because he can speak Ryan Grubb's language. We've talked about this. So Jason Peters visiting the Seahawks might be signed, right? If he's not physically able to do it, that explains a lot. But him being signed to the practice squad, I would want, because he can take his knowledge and instill it into the other players. But him being there, you would not necessarily want him to play, right? And even if he does, you would want him to be a rotational piece. He rotates to right tackle, points something out to Anthony Bradford. He rotates to right guard, points something out to Stone Forsythe. Does that a few times a game. It just makes them smarter players, right? But when he's in there, he's a physical liability. You just have him in there so that he can show the guys during the game what to look for, how to adjust, how to play. But then Connor Williams or a tight end would have to be in there to help him compensate for physical limitations. It's just how aging works, right? On another note, something fun. Is it this year? Is it the year before? Look at this Detroit Lion uniform. I'm not a fan of uniforms that go with the black, right? Like a uniform where they decide to go all white or all black, right? The Arizona Cardinals have done this. The Cowboys, I think, have done this. A few teams have done this where they just decide to go all black or all white, and it doesn't look good. But this Lions helmet in particular, if they kept the white lion and then they went with the black uniform, it would be lazy. But this helmet looks really fucking good, guys. This black lion on the blue, that looks really good. They call this the Motor Muscle uniform. There's a Sports Illustrated article. I have it in the description below that talks about this uniform. It's going to be played against us on Monday Night Football. There was another article that was posted a few months ago. I don't know. I think it was in April, that said that some Lions fans think that this uniform is cursed. I don't care. This helmet looks fucking wicked. I'm all for it, right? This is a cool ass uniform. Again, I think that uniforms that they decide to go all black is a lazy look, but not this. This looks rad, right? I think that this has some fucking attitude to it, and it looks well. It looks good with the blue. With that blue helmet, it makes it pop. The one thing that it doesn't have is like that silver that steel look, right? It's Detroit. They make cars there. You need that steel. You need that titanium type of fucking build to it, right? When you have the Steelers and they have that bumblebee look, it's because of the orange hot, yellow hot bars that have been getting steeled and burned in their I'm not from Pittsburgh, right? You know what I mean? They put the metal in there, it gets red hot, and then they take a hammer to it. That's what those bars are on their bumblebee suits, right? I like uniforms that have some freaking attitude to it, that add to the culture. And so I would like for like these shoulder pads here to maybe be silver, right? And add a little bit more silver to this uniform. But the helmet's perfect, guys. We get to watch Detroit play this on Monday Night Football, and Monday Night Football games are always a little bit dark, right? Because they're played so late in the night. This game is gonna look really fucking cool, and so I'm excited for that. Again, I have the links to that SI article in the description below. I want to talk about, before we get to the main topic, I want to talk about the coaching staff of this Detroit Lions team. You heard it in the opening. We have a Steelers, Lions, Seahawks weird connection. So we're going to talk about all three teams today. And it starts with Antoine Randall L. The opening video sound that we heard was in that Steelers-Seahawks Super Bowl with Antoine Randall L., Steelers Super Bowl champion wide receiver, throwing a touchdown to Hines Ward. He is their wide receivers coach. He is the guy who, for the past how many years since he won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady, has been making the Lions wide receiving core look absolutely amazing. He made St. Brown, the sun god, look like the sun god that he is, right? Let's all hail, I can't remember the sun guy, Raw or whatever his name is, right? Normally I remember that. I can't remember it right now. But Randall L. has been historically a really good wide receiver coach since his time in Tampa Bay to now his time with the Detroit Lions. With Jared Goff, they have been regularly, a top 5 passing team, a top 10 passing team. St. Brown has put together a memorable season as he become just the third Lions wide receiver since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger to be named a first-team All-Pro. And then among all NFL players in 2023, St. Brown ranked first in 100-yard receiving games with 9. Yeah, he's that dude. He's then paired with coach Steve Hayden, who, okay, so obviously they have Laporta. Before that, they had Hutchinson, who they traded to the Vikings, who's been a standout with the Vikings, and then they immediately replaced with Laporta. But before that, he coached with the Cardinals for just the longest time. And the Cardinals, he reinvigorated tight end Zach Ertz, who Zach Ertz had been with the Eagles for a long time. His career kind of fell apart because they were having Carson Wentz issues, right? But then when he goes to the Cardinals, his career became reinvigorated, particularly as a blocker, but he did become a good receiver as well. He also had a habit of just tutoring up young tight ends, but by the time he comes to Detroit, he just had back-to-back tight ends in Hutchinson and then Laporta, and making them all-star, all-pro quality, Pro Bowl quality tight ends. So, good wide receiver coach, good tight end coach. Final coach, this guy Terrell Williams, he ended up actually being one of our interns on the defensive line for the Seahawks back in 2007. Old Holmgren era, right? He bounced around in college for a little bit, bounced around with the Titans for a little bit, coached up Jeffrey Simmons, who was an all-pro player and a Pro Bowl player, until he finally made his way to, to Detroit. But he did spend some time, This is what happens when I read backwards. I end up bouncing around. Where's Ndamukong Suh? He did coach up Ndamukong Suh. Here we go. He spent some time with the Miami Dolphins. Do you remember that team? Do you remember that team that busted up Russell Wilson's ankle in 2016 and really screwed up that season for us? Yeah, Terrell Williams coached up that defense, and that defense had one of the best defensive units of the Miami Dolphins in recent memory. He spent 2015 to 2017 as their defensive line coach. He coached Cameron Wake, who tallied 29 sacks over those 3 seasons, the 8th highest total of any player over that 3 span, which had we had Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett going off over that span. We had Aaron Donald going off over that span. He also worked with all-pro defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh, who totaled the 8th most sacks, 15.5 amongst defensive tackles over that period. He's just always coached absolute fucking... I've been trying to cover my mouth, right? Now I'm swearing, Camden. Just coached absolute dogs in the NFL. Ever since he became a defensive line coach. He then joins the 2024 Lions as a run game coordinator, defensive line coach. So now he's doing both. He's doing the run game and the defensive line coach, bringing 27 years of coaching experience to Detroit. This is important. This is incredibly important because I want to talk to you about how the fact that even if we had Kenneth Walker healthy, we're not going to run on this Detroit team. Zach Charbonnet last week, people were praising him. Look at how many yards he got against Miami. He scored 2 touchdowns. Bravo for the 2 touchdowns. I'll give him that. I'll mostly give it to the line. But all that yardage he got, a lot of that was draw plays on 3rd and oblivion. A lot of that yardage was coming from, we're trying to get into an advantageous punting situation. Go rewatch that game when we're running on 3rd and 15 or running on 3rd and 25 and watch him pick up 8 to 10 yards. Yeah, most of that yardage was not hard-fought yards. It was a bunch of empty space as they're trying to prevent us from throwing deep, getting close to a first down marker. It's going to be a hard-fought Detroit game, and I'm going to show you why. So, Pro Football Reference, of course, we're here all the time. Team stats. The Detroit Lions have ran for 489 yards. They have allowed opponents to 230. For context, Seattle Seahawks, we have ran for 292 yards, and we have allowed 349 yards rushing. Who have the Detroit Lions faced? They've faced the Los Angeles Rams, who they rushed for 100 and here it is. They had 83 yards rushing. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 70 yards rushing, and then the Cardinals had 77 yards rushing. Let's look at this Cardinals team though. I want to show you something fun. Arizona Cardinals. They have on the year 432 yards rushing. So, held to 77 on that game. They still have 432 yards rushing. They're way up there leading the league in rushing. Look what they did against this Buffalo Bills team. 124. Look what they did against the Los Angeles Rams. 231 yards rushing. They go into Detroit, fucking nothing. Let's take a look at this Los Angeles Rams team, why don't we? They got Kyren Williams. Kicking ass, right? Rushing yards. They got 231 yards rushing. Opponents, 531, right? So the Cardinals have been absolutely whooping ass on the ground. Against Detroit, they ran for 83. Against the Arizona Cardinals, 53. Against San Francisco, 98. Not great. I just wanted to give you some context. We're going to go into this into this Detroit Lions team and not run the ball. There's no way in hell we're going to put up 100 yards rushing unless for some reason our offensive line just starts getting its shit together. Now, Laken Tomlinson, we can say what we want about his ability to pass protect, but Laken Tomlinson has been a good run blocker. Stone Forsythe, we can say what we want about his ability to pass protect. He had a pretty okay grade last week against Miami because Anthony Bradford got a grade of 0. And like I said about, hey, the Nazis are blitzing Paris. Why would you blitz their wall when you can just go around him? I would bet that part of the reason why Stone Forsythe looks so damn good on a grading scale is because why would you go up against that guy when there's a giant hole at right guard? Stone Forsythe probably had a pretty good grade in comparison because Anthony Bradford looks so bad. Just go where the weakest link is. But even Anthony Bradford, he looks all right running the ball. Connor Williams looks all right running the ball. We have a bunch of B-listers running the ball. Not a bunch of all-pros, not a bunch of pro bowlers, but we're doing okay. Okay is not going to cut it against this Detroit Lions team. Okay did not cut it against the Miami team. It didn't cut it against the Patriots team, and it definitely did not cut it against that Miami team for entire quadrants of that game. So unless we suddenly get it together and put ourselves in third and short situations, we're going to struggle mightily running the ball. This is a game where we need to not allow Aiden Hutchinson, their former first round pick from years ago, I think it was third overall, from eating on us. Let's look at that really quick. They got one man. They got that one guy, Aiden Hutchinson. He's got 6.5 sacks, 16 combined tackles, 11 quarterback hits. He's just fucking railing. They got Levy, not going to butcher his name, I apologize, for 1 sack, 7 combined hits. And then they have Marcus Davenport for half a sack, 4 quarterback hits. Who else has quarterback hits? Wingo for 1, Kyle Pecco for 1. They're not getting to the quarterback, except for Aiden Hutchinson. That's a big benefit to us. I want to show you something in comparison. Here's what we're doing, because we're leading the NFL in that statistic. Boye Mafe has 3, Derek Hall has 3, Leonard Williams 1.5, Terrell Dodson has 1, Jerron Reed has 1, Draymond Jones has 1, Byron Murphy has half. Quarterback hits, Leonard Williams has 8, Derek Hall has 7, Boye Mafe has 6, Jerron Reed has 2, Draymond Jones has 2, Terrell Dodson has 1, Byron Murphy has 1, Jonathan Hankins has 1. But let's just get real, right? Total sacks, we have 11, 28 quarterback hits. Total sacks, they have 8, 21 quarterback hits. But they only have one guy. They have the one guy who could do the one thing really, really well. They have 106 total combined tackles. We have 135 total combined tackles. So if we can just stop their one pass rusher, we're gravy. But no one's been able to stop their one pass rusher. And so they've been turned into gravy. Even the Arizona Cardinals, who have been running all over every single team the previous 2 weeks of the season. Something to keep in mind as we get ready for this Monday night football game. We did have Charles Cross, who was perfect the first 2 weeks of the season, but it was because everyone was teeing off of Stone Forsythe. Once the guards started turning into shambles and Charles Cross started getting put on an island, he got beat a couple times. That doesn't mean he's a terrible player. It just means, he's not Walter Jones. But even he said throughout the week, yo, I'm not Walter Jones. Nobody's Walter Jones. He's doing things that no one should be able to do. Couple comments. North Swing, K9 should be back. He makes the terrible O-line look average. Don't knock off us getting 100 yards rushing. That is true. One thing about K9 is he has a distinct ability to make a bad play into something wild, which is part of the reason why we drafted him from Michigan. Is he'll make a guy miss and then he'll bounce outside and then just go, right? He'll go down the field. He'll turn what should have been a negative 2-yard loss into an explosive run. And Kyler Murray's kind of the same way, right? The Cardinals don't have that type of running back. Connor is not that type of running back. Kyron Williams is kind of that type of running back, but he's not that type of a loose cannon. And they don't have anybody on offense except for like Kobe Parkinson left, right? So there is that, because we have so many wide receivers that are so good that will spread the field, and it will definitely give a K9 that type of opportunity. To your point, if we are to get 100 yards, I would bet it would be on one of those fluky plays that K9 seems to get every single game, where he just happens to explode down the field and we don't know how he did that. Oftentimes it's because there's a gap that's open, he decides to bounce and then goes outside. And why would you ever do that? Well, it's because he's Kenneth Walker III. Eric Gilbertston, good to see you again. What do you think about using the defenses of aggressiveness against itself and do more planned quarterback runs? Geno is sneaky athletic, in my opinion. He is. He's one of the faster quarterbacks in the league. I've talked about this in the Patriots game. I call it giving the middle finger. It's called opening up the hash mark. If you can open up the hash mark, that B gap and that C gap, you can create a nice running lane, which guarantees the quarterback anywhere from 9 to 15 yards. Geno has that ability to also know spacing really well deep down the field. And so I would like to see Geno take advantage in that inside gap. I don't like to see him run outside, because I think when you do that, quarterbacks have been doing that for so long with the RPO in the NFL that NFL defenses have gotten really good at defending the outside. But with the scheme that Ryan Grubb has brought, he does a lot of vertical shots paired with wheel routes and corner routes. And when you do that, you seem to create a spread, which opens up the hash marks. And you can only cover so many spots on the field. So when you do that, like a sail route, right, paired with a deep vertical, the DK, teams are so worried about that they pull their safeties back. They pull their outside linebackers to the outside, and you can create a nice seam route for Geno Smith to run up and then, slide down. That can be really easy yards that then force linebackers and safeties to have to hesitate, giving our running backs a chance to run on the outside. I'm not a big fan typically of running on the outside, but when you have a Kenneth Walker, that's where you want to run. So I would like to see some aggressiveness from Geno Smith especially since we're playing the Giants next week, right? He could take some hits and it won't be a problem next week, right? Let's make sure that we beat this Lions team that beat the Cardinals, that beat the Lions, so that if it becomes a problem later in the season, if we trade games with the Lions and the Cardinals, we make sure that we beat the Lions and have a one-up on them in playoff seeding. Let us continue. This is where the conversation's gonna get weird. I know it gets weird, because every time I bring it up, people disagree. You have every right to disagree. I am going to talk about the true turnover differential. It is a number I use to predict and to evaluate whether a team is truly taking care of the ball. Pete Carroll talks about winning the turnover battle, but then he would punt like 7 to 8 times a game, and it would drive me crazy. He'd be like, I don't understand. We turned over the ball once, they turned over the ball 3 times, we still lost. And I'm like, yeah, well, because you kept losing on 3rd down, and then you would punt the ball routinely. Or you would get down to a 4th down situation, you would go for it on 4th and 3, and then you would fail instead of taking the 3 points. So there's a couple things about the true turnover differential, true turnover ratio. One is called the rule of 7. The rule of 7 is if you have 7 drives where you kick a field goal every single time, you will score 21 points. The average NFL team gets 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, right? If you can hold a team under 2, you're probably gonna win. So if you have 2 touchdowns, 14 points, you get 3 more field goals, you're gonna be guaranteed to win, because that's gonna get you up to 21, right? 3 touchdowns get you 21 points. You only need 1 more field goal, 24 points, right? You're probably going to win. If you get 4 touchdowns, that's 28 points. You don't need any field goals. You're probably going to win. If you have 5 touchdowns, it's not needed unless your defense absolutely sucks, right? But if you get 7 touchdowns, field goals, you're probably going to win. The average amount of drives that every team has every single game is 10 to 12. So if you can, and this is bizarre, right? If you can, let's say you get 10 drives in a game, if 70% of those drives end in a field goal, and you have a good defense and you can hold a team under 20 points, and all you do is kick field goals, you're probably going to win that game. Camden, that never happens. Well, I have an example of it happening. This year, actually, I have an example of it happening. I don't know why my screen is crashing right now, but here it is. I want to show you the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers Week 1. Here we go. Here we go. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers, they win 18-10. Look at this score line. Damn ads. 3 points in the first quarter, 6 in the second, 6 in the third, 3 in the fourth. Atlanta, they score a touchdown and they score a field goal, but they lose. Steelers didn't they didn't score a single touchdown the entire game, and they still won this game. So this is how this works, okay? You have true turnovers. Hold on. You have true turnovers. You have hidden turnovers. And then you have your total number of scoring drives. And then you add the turnovers together, hidden turnovers together, and then you subtract by the total number of scoring drives. You get your total turnovers. Put them all together. You have your true turnover ratio based off of the teams. So this side is the Steelers. This side is their competition. Against the Falcons, Steelers had 0 turnovers, Falcons had 3. In week 2, they went up against, I believe it was the Broncos. Let me just make sure. They went against the Broncos, and then they went against the Chargers. 0 turnovers against the Broncos. Chargers had 2. Steelers had 1 turnover against the Chargers. Chargers had 0 turnovers. Hidden turnovers. These are 2 different things. Punts and failed fourth down conversions. Every time you punt, this is where Pete Carroll didn't get it right. If Russell Wilson doesn't throw an interception, but he makes the team punt 10 times because of his little loop-de-loops, and then at the end of the game, he converts, the team doesn't punt twice, and so then we win 14-10. That doesn't mean Russell Wilson had a good game. Oh, he came back in the fourth quarter. No, shout out to the defense for holding off this other team the entire game. We had 10 turnovers on punts the entire game. Russell Wilson didn't play well. If he just got down the field 3 times, 4 times during those other 10 turnovers that were punts and turned those into field goal opportunities, that would have been a good chance for us to make that 14-10 game not so stressful. We could have instead had a 21-10 win, right? So that's what this is about, is hidden turnovers. Can you take a game that you don't need as many touchdowns as possible, right? You don't need the 2 touchdowns to win it. You just need to get some field goals to win. Can you get up in there? You don't need the 3 touchdowns. You don't need the 4 touchdowns. Can you just make sure that you get into the red zone 7 times, 6 times, right? Something like that. Just make sure that you drive down the field. Don't punt. So hidden turnovers, don't punt, don't fail on 4th down. Steelers punted 4 times or failed to convert on 4th down 4 times. 8, 3, 4, 7, 7. Scoring drives. So these are all touchdowns and field goals, or if you convert a 2 points. If you can get 2 points from the other team, we don't include for hidden turnovers that like a safety, that doesn't count as a turnover for them. That counts as a scoring drive for the other team. So the Steelers in that first game, even though they didn't score any touchdowns, they had 6 drives where they scored a field goal. And remember, if you have 7 drives with a field goal, you score 21 points. They ended up with 18, right? That was enough to win them the game. Their defense was good enough to hold off the other team. If you score 21 to 24 points in a game, you're probably going to win if you have a reasonably good defense. Week 2 against the Broncos, 3 scores to the Broncos 2. Week 3, you have 4 scores to the Broncos 2. Notice what's going on here. If you have more scores than the other team, regardless of the fact that the Falcons scored a touchdown that game, regardless of the fact that you might have only kicked field goals, you're probably going to win that game. Look at this week 2 against the Broncos. You had more hidden turnovers, more punts than the Denver Broncos, but you still win the game, right? Why is that? Well, look at the total turnovers. When you add these turnovers together, you didn't turn the ball over. If you say Pete Carroll week 1, look, we didn't turn the ball over. Falcons did it 3 times, right? We didn't turn the ball over. Broncos did it twice. We punted 8 times. They punted 7 times. I'd be upset about that, but we had 3 scoring drives. They had 2. When you take the 8 and you subtract by 3, you had a differential of 5 total turnovers, right? So you had 5 scoring drives, 5 turnovers, right? If this was reversed, you had 3 hidden turnovers, and then you had 8 scoring drives for some crazy reason, right? Then this would be a -5, which would be really good. But you had a total of 5 total turnovers. And then this added up to 7 turnovers for the Denver Broncos, which means when you add all of this up together, through 3 weeks, the Steelers have turned over the ball 7 times, and their opponents have done it 17 times, which means it is incredibly likely that the Denver Broncos are going to score more than their opponents and turn over the ball less by more than half. When you apply the same logic to the Seahawks, I want to focus mostly on week 2 against the Patriots. So, first of all, when you look at the Steelers' score, they've outscored their opponents 51-26, which is pretty close to that half ratio, right? 51-26, that's about half, right? Obviously, it's about one point off. We got this 73-43 ratio, which is not half, but it's still a pretty significant swing in the total number of points, and I want to show you why. We have this 0-0 turnovers against the Patriots, hidden turnovers, including the 4th down conversion that was failed. We have the 6-6 hidden ratio for the Patriots. When we get to scoring drives, we scored 5 times, they scored 4. And if you remember, that game was really close. This could have been 4-5, but we blocked that field goal, which means that they would have beaten us by 1 right here, making this total ratio here at the end where we have the 1 and the 2. This would have been flipped. We would have lost. That's how close this was, this ratio. Total ratio for the Broncos, coincidentally, also is also split by 1. But then when we get to this Miami Dolphins team, split by 6. Put it all together, 6-14, which is very similar to the 7-17. Steelers are swinging a little bit harder against their 3 opponents, but they're consistently split by 3, split by 2, split by 5. All right, so their week 3 is pretty heavily swung by us, but the first 2 weeks of the season, and they played the Broncos as well, we were really, really close, and especially week 1, it should not have been that close, but the Denver Broncos got those 2 safeties, right, which is what swung their scoring drives in their favor. This ratio is kind of a lie, because when you look at the scoring points, it does not match up to the Steelers. So you can see that this ratio is based heavily on the fact that we are losing the hidden turnover battle. We are giving up just as many hidden turnovers, and unlike the Steelers, we aren't creating separation. We aren't giving more scoring drives, right? We're punting more than we have to, which then takes us to the Lions. The Lions are everything bad about what we've done for every single game. Turnovers 1-1, 2-1, 1-1, hidden turnovers 5-5, 4-5, 6-7. You see where I'm going with this? Scoring drives 5-4, 4-4, 3-3. They are neck and neck in every game. Their true turnover differential 1-2, 2-2, 4-5. Their true turnover ratio 7-9. The closer you are to your opponents, the closer these games are. You want to create separation from your opponents. And as the season goes on, you'll get more data. I hope all of that kind of made sense. I know that's a lot of numbers. But you want to have as few as many scoring drives as possible and as few hidden turnovers and normal turnovers as possible. And you want your opponents to have more than you, obviously. The Lions are really close. And so here's my point. If we cannot run the ball, that's fine. The big question is, can we win the hidden turnover battle? Or is it going to look like every other Lions game that the Lions have played this year? Are we going to have that 1-to-1 ratio that the Lions have had? Are we going to turn over the ball once and they'll turn it over once? Are we going to punt 5 times and they're going to punt 5 times? Or is it going to look like how it's looked all season for us? We're going to turn over once, they're going to turn over 3 times. We're going to punt 4 times, they're going to punt 7 times. Is it going to look like that Patriots game where if they shut down our line, we're going to be neck and neck and it's going to take a blocked field goal to win this game? It might. It actually might. Unless, like Eric said, like North Swing said, if our ability to stop the run, their ability to stop the run becomes moot because K9 just takes off and therefore prevents us from punting. If we can get a bunch of scoring drives going and just make it so it doesn't matter if we get sacked, it doesn't matter if we turn over the ball, we're just going to punt less and win that ratio, we're probably going to kick their ass. I'm not so sure because so far we've been so inconsistent on offense. On defense, I fully expect to absolutely smother this Lions team. They're not going to run on us. Byron Murphy, out. Leonard Williams, they say he's got a rib injury, questionable. I expect him to be out. Jerome Baker, he still has a shoulder injury. I expect him to be out. I don't expect our team to flinch at all. We are going to absolutely crush them. You're going to have Amon St. Brown go up against this cornerback room. It's not going to be a problem. He's going to have under 50 yards. We're going to hold them to about 17 points. If we can score 21 points, we win. No problem. It's all on the offensive line. Can the offensive line let Geno Smith do what he does? Can the running backs have any chance whatsoever of getting out there and picking up about 3.5 to 4 yards a carry? If we do that, we win. Can we take care of the football and prevent punts? If we do that, we win. If we prove that we cannot do that because we keep having entire halves or entire quarters of the game where we don't play, if it's like that Dolphins game where there's 40 minutes of nothing but flags and nothing happens, it could be like the Patriots game where we're a field goal away from losing. And maybe it's too early, but we actually do need this Lions game for playoff seeding really bad. We need it in case we need to prevent the Lions from, hosting a playoff game that we go to, prevent us from having to go to either Santa Clara for the playoffs, Arizona for the playoffs, or LA for the playoffs, because 2 of those teams are really unhealthy and they could get hot later because they have a lot of talent. We don't know what Arizona really is yet. This is an important game purely for playoff seeding, and we have a hell of an opportunity to beat them while we're still in a 3-0 lead. Then we play the Giants next week, who they have an okay defense, but a terrible offense. If we can get a 4-0 jump on this division, look out NFC West. Make them come through Seattle. We need to beat this Lions team to set us up for success on multiple levels. So I don't want us to go to Detroit and act like this is just a practice game. We've gone up against some sorry-ass quarterbacks. Enough is enough. One last comment, and then I gotta go. Eric Gilbertson. Does your turnover ratio take into account boneheaded penalties that stall drives? We seem to excel at those types of penalties, sadly. It does, purely because if it stalls drives, it results in a punt. So it's basically the same thing. Likewise, boneheaded sacks. If your quarterback takes a sack, if your quarterback misses a wide open target, if your offensive line becomes a revolving door. We saw plays by Christian Haynes and by Anthony Bradford where they're just a revolving door and the guy comes flying in. I think Laken Tomlinson had a grade of 0, or maybe that was Anthony Bradford had a grade of 0. If your guy is playing so poorly, it results in a punt instead of just, or even just if your coordinator is so bad that he's not putting your offense in a good position to keep the chains moving to enter a field goal attempt, right? Those all count as turnovers because they result in a punt. If you have a kicker who can't make a 50-yard or a 45-yard attempt, that's also a failed drive, right? It's very simple. It's not trying to overcomplicate the process. There is another part of it, which is strength of schedule. So you could have the Lions who are playing a really good Cardinals team. Meanwhile, we've played a really bad Broncos team. And as the season goes on, there is going to be some separation in that turnover ratio. And you're going to realize, oh, well, the Lions, their ratio is so close. And it's going to look different than ours because Jacoby Brissett doesn't turn over the ball, right? But also this team doesn't punt as much, right? Because they have longer drives. So there's going to be fewer opportunities to punt. But it's a general idea to see where teams are making their mistakes. And that's just how I perceive, like, hey, where are these teams making mistakes? Geno Smith, for instance, he's turned over the ball pretty considerably. When you look at this, let me show you something. The Steelers, they turned over the ball once on offense, which is pretty incredible. And they have 5 turnovers on defense. But when you look at the Seahawks, we have 2 turnovers on defense with this great defense we have. And we have turned over the ball 5 times on offense. Actually, one of those, I think, was a special teams play. So, but, kick returns are oftentimes included in the offensive side of the ball. When you look at the Lions, they've also turned the ball over 4 times, and their defense has more turnovers than us. They have 3. So it's just to give you a general idea of how teams are doing currently and how they fared against opposing teams. Are they able to move the ball? Are they getting more 3-and-outs than other teams? Are they able to, make sure that they're keeping the ball in their hands longer than other teams? That's the general idea. So here's hoping that we can keep Aiden Hutchinson off of us, because he's the only threat on their defensive line right now. Surely we can stop just one guy, right? Anyways, tomorrow night, I have a guest interview with Sandra Green from Our Turf Football. This will be her 4th appearance on the show. I'm very excited to have her coming back again. She's great. She covers the Lions. Remember to send me any questions you might have for her regarding the Lions. And we will try to get to as many of those as possible. The last questions we had for Lisa Johnson covering the Miami Dolphins were great. Please like the video, subscribe to First Kick Seahawks, and I will catch you guys around. See ya.